Scene 1, the arrival at Butude Road. It was a night so still that even the wind seemed to hold its breath. The moon hung low in the sky, pale and distant, casting long, thin shadows across the landscape. A small group of travelers, 5 in total, had been driving for hours, following a GPS that seemed unsure of itself, hesitant to speak, as if it too feared what lay ahead. They were looking for an adventure, something that could break the monotony of their ordinary lives. Little did they know, the road they were about to take would change them forever. Asterisk, the first glimpse of Butude Road came from a turn in the forest. The asphalt was cracked, overgrown with weeds and moss, as though nature itself was trying to swallow it whole. Old, twisted trees lined both sides, their bare branches reaching out like skeletal fingers. A fog had begun to settle in, thin it first, curling around the trunks of the trees, but soon thick enough to make even the closest things appear distant and unreal. Asterisk, are you sure this is the right road? Emily, the driver asked, her voice tight, betraying her unease. Asterisk, GPS says yes, replied Marcus, glancing at the screen. But it doesn't really show where it goes after this. Asterisk, a long silence followed, only broken by the occasional snap of a branch under their tires. The deeper they went, the heavier the fog became, until the world outside the car seemed to vanish entirely, leaving only the vehicle and the sound of their own breathing. That was when the first whisper came. It was soft, almost imperceptible, like the rustling of dry leaves. No one spoke at first. They listened. Asterisk, did you hear that? Whispered Sarah, clutching the edge of her seat. Asterisk, hear what? Replied Jason, trying to sound casual, but his eyes darted around nervously. Asterisk, the whisper came again, clearer this time. Words that no one could understand, a language that seemed both ancient and impossibly familiar, like a memory they had never lived. It seemed to come from the trees themselves, a voice that circled them, moving with the fog, unseen yet palpable. Asterisk, the road stretched on, narrowing in places, the tree branches almost meeting overhead. Shadows danced where the headlights did not reach, flickering like living things just beyond vision. Marcus slowed the car instinctively, the engine's growl barely keeping the oppressive silence at bay. Asterisk, and they saw a figure standing in the middle of the road, not a pedestrian, not an animal, but something else entirely. Tall, impossibly thin, its face hidden beneath a hood that seemed to absorb light. It didn't move, yet the sense of being watched was overwhelming. Asterisk, Emily's hands tightened on the steering wheel. Drive past it, she said in a whisper. Asterisk, the figure remained still. As they approached, the air grew colder, a biting chill that seeped through the car, numbing their fingers and toes. The tires crunched over loose gravel as Marcus attempted to pass. And then, in a blink, the figure was gone. Asterisk, did it move? Sarah asked, her voice trembling. Asterisk, no, Jason replied, though his confident tone faltered. It wasn't here. Maybe we just imagined it. Asterisk, but none of them had imagined the faint laughter that echoed softly through the trees. Following them down the road, Asterisk, minutes passed, or maybe hours. Time itself seemed to stretch unnaturally. On Butude Road, every bend revealed the same fog, the same oppressive darkness, the same feeling of being watched. And then they saw the signs of those who had been there before them. Old, decaying objects half buried in the soil. Shoes, a broken lantern, a torn piece of cloth fluttering in the wind. Asterisk, the whispers grew louder, as though sensing their fear. They seemed to crawl along the edges of the car, brushing against the skin, impossible to ignore. And then came the sound that truly made their blood run cold. Low, guttural growl, coming not from the trees, but from the darkness itself. Surrounding them, Asterisk, the group exchanged panicked glances. Emily's knuckles were white on the steering wheel. Marcus tried to reassure them, but even he could feel the weight of the road pressing down, suffocating, relentless. Asterisk, suddenly, the car hit a pothole, sending them lurching forward. And for a moment, the fog parted just enough to reveal what lay ahead. A stretch of road that seemed to end abruptly in darkness. No lights, no signs, nothing but the void. And on the edge of that darkness, shadows moved. Many shadows. Hundreds. Maybe thousands. Impossible to count. Writhing like living things. Waiting. Asterisk turned back. Sarah screamed. Asterisk, but turning back wasn't an option. The road behind them had disappeared into the fog, as if it had never existed. Panic set in. Their headlights flickered once, twice, and then went out, leaving them in a world where sight was useless, and the whispers filled the air completely. Asterisk, they tried the car radio. Static. Nothing but static. Punctuated by faint, distant cries that made their skin crawl. Every instinct screamed at them to leave, to run, to escape, but escape was a dream the Butude Road refused to allow. Asterisk, and then the first touch happened. Emily felt a hand cold, impossibly thin brush her shoulder. She screamed, and the others looked, but there was nothing there. Nothing except the fog, the trees, the shadows, and the endless, oppressive road stretching ahead. Asterisk, it was at that moment that they realized something horrifying. They were not just on Butude Road. Butude Road was alive. And it was hungry. Asterisk, the car moved forward, slowly, each meter a struggle against the weight of the unseen force pressing from all sides. The whispers grew into voices, voices that spoke their names, secrets, fears, and sins. They begged, pleaded, cried, but the voices weren't there to comfort. They were there to consume, to unravel them, piece by piece, until nothing remained but terror. Asterisk, hours, or what felt like hours, passed. Every turn revealed more twisted shadows, more strange artifacts of the road's long history of horror. The travelers began to see visions of people who had walked this path before them, their faces twisted in silent screams, trapped between the fog and the shadows, unable to move, unable to escape. Asterisk, and in that oppressive silence, a single thought echoed in every mind. Once you enter Butude Road, it never lets go. Asterisk, the first scream pierced the night, sharp and terrified. It came from within the car, and then another. The road seemed to pulse with a dark satisfaction, as if feeding on the fear of its new visitors. Asterisk, and somewhere, deep in the fog, the first figure reappeared, just beyond the reach of the headlights. Smiling, or at least, the sense of its twisted intent was unmistakable. The journey had only just begun. Scene 2, the first encounter. The night on Butude Road had settled into a rhythm of dread, an oppressive cadence that seemed to echo in the very bones of the travelers. Emily's hands still trembled on the steering wheel, though she tried to focus on the cracked asphalt beneath them. Marcus had stopped speaking entirely, his eyes darting from shadow to shadow, trying desperately to convince himself over everyone else that what they were seeing wasn't real. Asterisk, it was Jason who first noticed it. Asterisk, at the edge of the fog, barely visible, a figure emerged. At first, it was nothing more than a dark silhouette, indistinct against the swirling grey mist. But as they drew closer, they realized it was human-shaped, unnervingly so, yet wrong in ways they couldn't immediately define. Its movements were fluid but not natural, as if it glided just above the road. There was no sound, no rustle of clothing, no disturbance in the fog around it, only its presence. An undeniable, oppressive awareness that froze the blood in there. Vane stopped. Asterisk stopped the car, Sarah whispered, her voice barely audible over the pounding of her heart. Asterisk, Emily's grip on the wheel tightened. No, keep moving, she said, though her voice betrayed her own fear. If we stop, it'll... I don't know what it'll do, but we can't stop. Asterisk, Marcus shook his head. We can't just drive past it. It's looking at us. Asterisk, Jason squinted, trying to make sense of what he saw. The figure didn't have distinguishable features. No eyes, no mouth, just a faint suggestion of a face hidden beneath a hood. Its body was impossibly thin, limbs elongated unnaturally, and yet its posture carried an almost human-like patience, an intelligence that set it apart from mere shadows or illusions. Asterisk, as the car drew nearer, the figure tilted its head slightly. An imperceptible motion, but enough to send a shiver racing down their spines. And then it did something utterly impossible. It smiled. Not with lips, not with teeth, but with a shadow that seemed to twist and ripple across its face. A smile that was a promise of pain, of terror, of things that should not exist in the waking world. Asterisk, the fog thickened instantly, curling around the vehicle, forming strange patterns that seemed almost deliberate. The trees along the road leaned closer, their branches intertwining, forming grotesque shapes that mimicked the figure ahead. It was as if the road itself had become a living thing, reshaping reality to accommodate its predator. Asterisk, Emily's knuckles turned white as she gripped the wheel. Drive faster, she urged. Just go. Asterisk, but no matter how fast they pressed the pedal, the figure remained the same distance away. It neither approached nor retreated. Time itself seemed to stretch unnaturally, a cruel joke played. By Butude Road, the air grew heavier, denser, as if every breath they took required effort against some unseen force pressing in from all sides. Asterisk, then came the sound, faint scratching, like fingernails against stone, coming not from the figure, but from everywhere at once. The car radio erupted into static, images of flickering light and shadow dancing across the windshield. Each crackle of sound carried faint whispers, repeating their names, uttering fears and secrets they had never confessed to another living soul. Asterisk, Sarah pressed her hands to her ears. It knows us. It knows everything, she cried. Asterisk, Marcus swallowed hard, feeling bile rise in his throat. This isn't, it can't be real. It's a dream, a hallucination, Asterisk, but the figure was real. Asterisk seeked it stepped closer. Or maybe the car had slowed in the warped time of Butude Road. But there was no question. It was here. The air around it shimmered unnaturally, cold and heavy, carrying the unmistakable scent of decay and old soil, like a grave dug centuries ago. Asterisk Jason, who had been silent until now, finally spoke. "It wants something from us," he said, his voice low, trembling. "It's hungry." Asterisk the figure raised one impossibly long arm. The movement was smooth, deliberate, almost ceremonious. The fog around it spiraled like smoke, forming faces that screamed in silent agony. And then, the hand pointed directly at them. Not a vague gesture, but an unmistakable signal. Asterisk Emily slammed on the brakes instinctively, but the car skidded over. The gravel, unable to stop completely. The tires crunched, echoes reverberating into the void. But when they looked back, the road stretched endlessly, no signs of escape. The figure had vanished, leaving only the fog and shadows. Asterisk, they exhaled. In relief, thinking it gone. But the relief was fleeting. From the corner of her eye, Sarah saw movement, something darting between the trees. Impossibly fast, just glimpses of black shapes, almost human, almost not. Each time they blinked, the shapes moved closer. Asterisk Emily. "We need to get off this road," Sarah pleaded. Asterisk Emily shook her head. "There is no off this road. There is only forward." Asterisk Marcus looked around desperately. "Where does it end?" Asterisk no one had an answer. The road seemed to stretch endlessly into the darkness, bending and twisting unnaturally, as if the world outside had ceased to exist. Their headlights barely penetrated the thick fog, and every shadow became a potential threat. Every rustle in the trees a scream waiting to happen. Asterisk then came a sound that made their stomachs turn a low resonant hum vibrating through the air. And their bones. It wasn't coming from the figure. It was coming from everywhere at once, surrounding them. The vibrations carried with them a sense of memory and foreboding, ancient and unknowable. Faces flashed in the mist, twisted in silent agony. Mouths open in screams that had no sound. Asterisk the travelers began to see things they couldn't explain. A tree bent unnaturally, reaching toward the car. Shadows moved independently of the light, forming shapes that mimicked them but twisted grotesquely. And always, just at the edge of perception, the figure waited, watching, patient, smiling. Asterisk Emily tried to focus, tried to keep her eyes on the road, but panic had begun to take root. Each heartbeat sounded like a drum in her chest, echoing the drumbeat of the road itself, slow, steady, inescapable. And then came the voices distinct this time, each one calling out a name, a sin, a secret. They whispered of betrayal, of hidden fears, of things buried deep in the mind. The travelers clutched at their heads, trying to block it out, but the whispers penetrated. Seething terror. Asterisk Jason, in a sudden burst of desperate courage or perhaps madness, rolled down his window, hoping to glimpse the figure directly. The cold fog rushed in, choking and suffocating, and for a heartbeat he saw it, the figure, impossibly close, its head tilted, its dark, faceless gaze piercing through him. The twisted smile seemed to crawl across its face, shifting as if alive. Hungry, insatiable. Asterisk he slammed the window shut. The others stared, frozen. They understood without speaking. The road was testing them, learning them, cataloging their fears, their weaknesses, their souls. And it would not release them easily. Asterisk minutes or perhaps hours passed. They drove on in silence, each of them lost in their own private terror. Every bend of the road brought new whispers, new shadows, new glimpses of impossible things. And always, just ahead, the figure waited, sometimes visible, sometimes vanished, always patient, always watching. Then, unexpectedly, the figure stepped aside, revealing a side path leading into an overgrown section of forest. It was a narrow trail, barely wide enough for the car, and it looked alive. The trees leaned closer, roots twisted like serpents across the ground, and the fog thickened, carrying voices louder, closer, more intimate. Emily hesitated. "Do we take it?" she whispered. Marcus shook his head, pale and trembling. "I don't know, but it feels like it wants us to." Jason swallowed hard. "There is no choice," he muttered. "It's guiding us. That's all we can do." And so, with hearts pounding and fear clawing at their minds, they turned into the path, leaving the familiar stretch of Butude Road behind. The shadows followed, curling around them, whispering secrets, laughing softly, always unseen, always patient. That first encounter had not been an attack. It had been a warning, but the travelers did not know it yet. The true horrors of Butude Road were only beginning. And as the mist swallowed their car, as the shadows pressed closer, and as the whispers grew insistent, they understood one terrible truth. Butude Road would not let them leave, not willingly, not ever. Scene 3. The abandoned village. The narrow path the travelers had taken from Butude Road seemed to stretch endlessly, winding through the dense forest as if it had no end. The fog thickened, clinging to their car like a living thing, cold and damp, carrying whispers that grew sharper, more insistent. Every sound was magnified. The crunch of tires over gravel, the rustle of branches, the faintest sigh of wind. Each noise was a reminder that they were not alone. Hours or what felt like hours passed before the car emerged into a clearing. There, barely visible through the fog, lay the remnants of a village. It was small, ancient, and entirely deserted. Roofs had caved in, windows were broken, doors hung from their hinges, and the streets were littered with debris, overgrown with weeds and creeping roots. Yet, despite the decay, the village exuded a sense of purpose, as if it had been waiting for them, watching, anticipating their arrival. Emily slowed the car to a crawl. This can't be real," she whispered. The village looked untouched by time in some ways, yet every corner suggested neglect and desolation. Marcus shook his head, pale. "I've never seen anything like this. Not in movies. Not in real life. How does a village just vanish like this?" Jason, ever the skeptic, leaned forward, trying to get a better look. "It hasn't vanished. It's here. Something wants us to see it." Sarah shivered. "Wants us? Why? For what?" They didn't have long to ponder, because as they drove deeper into the village, it became clear that they were not the first visitors. Scattered throughout the streets were remnants of lives interrupted, a child's shoe half buried in dirt, a rusted toy wagon tipped onto its side, clothes draped over a broken fence as though someone had left in a hurry and never returned. Then they noticed something else, the writing on the walls. Faded, scrawled in what looked like blood, yet dry and old. It formed words in a language none of them recognized. Yet somehow, reading it felt like a warning, a whisper in their minds that twisted and recoiled with fear. Shapes of letters seemed to shift when not directly observed, moving across surfaces, forming and reforming. Asterisk, do you see that? Sarah gasped, pointing to a wall. Emily's eyes widened. She nodded, unable to tear her gaze away. It's moving. The words, they're moving. Marcus swallowed hard. It's alive. The feeling of being watched intensified. Every shadow seemed to pulse, to breathe. The fog, ever present, carried faint echoes of voices pleading, screaming, crying. The villagers had left traces, but they hadn't left completely. Something remained, something that had grown hungry for new souls. Jason stepped out of the car cautiously, his boots crunching over the uneven cobblestones. "We need to see this up close," he said, though his voice trembled. "We need to understand it." Emily followed reluctantly, gripping a flashlight. Its beam cut through the fog, revealing the skeletal remains of homes and shops. Dust hung in the air like tiny specters, and every step seemed to awaken them. As they explored, the true horror became apparent. Some of the buildings were intact, enough to enter, and inside, they found remnants of everyday life pots, utensils, furniture, but all twisted unnaturally. Chairs were overturned in impossible angles, floors warped as though molten, and mirrors reflected not themselves but the villagers in their final moments. Eyes wide in terror, Sarah stumbled back, stomach turning. This is wrong," she whispered. A soft, scratching sound echoed from an alleyway. They froze. From the shadows, faint shapes emerged, vague silhouettes of people, moving jerkily, unnaturally. There were echoes, imprints of the lives that had been here, stuck between dimensions, caught in a perpetual state of fear and panic. Emily's single quote, "slashlight" flickered. When it came back, one of the silhouettes was closer. Its eyes were empty sockets, yet they seemed to pierce her soul. She stumbled back, heart racing. Run. Jason shouted, but the path back to the car had vanished. In the village, the streets shifted subtly, corners elongating, alleys stretching impossibly. It was as though the village itself was alive, guiding them, herding them deeper into its haunted heart. Then came the whisper, slowed, clearer, more personal. They weren't just voices anymore. They were memories, secrets, fears. Marcus heard the voice of his childhood bully, laughing, taunting him. Sarah heard whispers of mistakes she had long buried, each syllable gnawing at her sanity. Emily and Jason heard fragments of conversations they had never shared, yet felt intimately known. Through the fog. The travelers began to see flashes of the past villagers frozen in their last moments. One room showed a woman clutching a child as shadowy figures loomed over her. In another, a man screamed silently as something dragged him into darkness. The flashes were brief, disjointed, yet hauntingly vivid, filling the travelers with a dread that was physical, pressing down on their chests, making it hard to breathe. A sudden noise made them jump. A door slammed somewhere in the village. The sound was deafening in the silence. And then the shadows moved faster, closer, their shapes more defined, their motions almost deliberate. The travelers were no longer observers. They were part of the village now, intruders in a place that existed outside the rules of the living world. Emily tried to reason. We have to find a central building. Maybe there's answers there. Maybe there's a way out. They approached the largest building, a decrepit structure that seemed to have been a town hall or gathering place. Its doors were broken, hanging crookedly on rusted hinges. The air around it was heavier, colder. A palpable sense of dread emanated from inside. Marcus swallowed hard. Do we really want to go in? Before anyone could answer, the door creaked open as if inviting them, beckoning them into the darkness within. The whispers surged, louder, almost jubilant, like the village itself was anticipating their entry. Inside, they found remnants of an ancient ritual, symbols carved into the floor, candles blackened with age, a strange altar at the center, and surrounding it, dozens of faded photographs, each showing a person who had walked Butude Road long ago, smiling, unaware, innocent. But as they looked closer, the faces twisted into expressions of horror, agony, and despair. Sarah gasped, stumbling backward. These are people like us, travelers. Jason ran his fingers over one of the carvings. The moment he touched it, the whispers escalated into voices screaming at them, overlapping, chaotic, yet coherent in the terror they conveyed. Leave, never leave, join. Suddenly, the floorboards beneath them groaned. Shadows stretched upward from the corners, twisting and writhing. The walls themselves seemed to breathe, the village alive in a way that defied comprehension. The travelers realized that the village had been waiting for them, feeding on their fear, shaping reality to trap them further. Emily tried to rally the group. We can't stay here. We have to leave. Spurred as they ran back toward the exit. The village shifted again. The paths they had come down no longer existed. The fog thickened to an almost solid wall. Shapes moved in the periphery of their vision, whispering their names, mocking, taunting, dragging at their minds. In that moment, they understood the cruel truth. Butude Road didn't just end at the forest. Its horrors extended into this village, a repository of all who had ever wandered there, trapped between life and death, feeding the road's insatiable hunger. The travelers had survived the first encounter with the figure, but now they faced a deeper, more intimate terror. They were no longer just being watched, they were part of the village now. Shadows of fear in a place that defied the natural world. A place where time and reality bent to the will of the unseen. And as the whispers intensified, echoing through the hallways and streets of the abandoned village, a terrible realization settled in. To survive Butude Road, one must confront the horrors that live not outside, but inside themselves, and the village would ensure they did, willingly or not. Scene 4. The Mirror in the Woods. The travelers had barely escaped the twisted streets of the abandoned village when the road narrowed once more, bending unnaturally through the dense forest. Every turn seemed identical to the last, every shadow indistinguishable from the previous. The fog clung to their car like a living entity, whispering constantly, softly, intimately. Emily's hands trembled on the wheel. I can't tell if we're moving forward or backward, she admitted. Her voice was a whisper, as if speaking any louder would draw the attention of unseen eyes. Marcus swallowed hard. It doesn't matter, he said. Wherever we go, it's here. That figure, Butude Road. It's everywhere. Jason squinted through the fog. Look there, he said, pointing. A faint glimmer reflected between the trees. They slowed the car, approaching the source of the light. It was a mirror, standing alone in a clearing, perfectly upright, framed in black wood that seemed older than time itself. No tree, no ground. Support, just a mirror, floating impossibly in the forest. Its surface unnaturally smooth, untouched by the fog or dirt. Sarah's breath caught. That can't be real, she whispered. Why is there a mirror here, in the middle of the woods? Emily shook her head, gripping the wheel tighter. It's some kind of trap. Something that wants us to look. Marcus stepped out of the car cautiously. We need to see it. Maybe it's a clue. A way out. Jason hesitated, but curiosity overpowered fear. He stepped forward alongside Marcus. As they approached, the fog seemed to recede slightly, forming a path toward the mirror. But it wasn't just fog that moved, it was the air itself. A chill ran through them, heavier than anything they had felt before, pressing down on their chests, making breathing difficult. The first to look into the mirror was Marcus. At first, it reflected only him, but then the reflection shifted. Not his face, not his body, but an older, twisted version of himself, eyes hollow and black, a smile curling in a way that made his stomach turn. He jerked back, stumbling, but the image remained, following him, mirroring his every movement, mocking him silently. Jason leaned closer, peering into the surface. The mirror didn't reflect him either. Instead, he saw a version of himself, trapped in darkness, screaming silently, reaching out as if begging for escape. His heart pounded violently. It's showing us something we fear, he whispered. Emily and Sarah stood frozen by the car, watching their friends. The fog seemed to writhe around the clearing, thickening, darkening, forming shapes that twisted unnaturally. Then, one by one, they glanced into the mirror. Emily saw herself surrounded by shadows, figures she didn't recognize, pressing against her, whispering her name. Every secret, every regret, every fear she had buried deep within her mind was laid bare, dancing across the glass in grotesque forms. Sarah's reflection was worse. Her image split and fractured, multiple versions of herself appearing at once, some screaming, some smiling, some crying. Each version tried to reach through the glass, pressing impossibly close, as if the mirror were alive, hungry, attempting to pull her into its world. The forest around them seemed to lean closer, trees stretching unnaturally, their branches reaching toward the mirror as if guiding its power. Shadows moved independently of the fog, forming shapes that resembled figures the travelers had glimpsed in the village. Tormented, twisted, hungry. Jason's knees buckled as he stumbled backward. It's showing what could happen. If we stay here, if we lose our minds, he whispered, voice shaking. It's alive. It knows us, knows our fears. Asterisk suddenly, the mirror rippled, like water disturbed by a stone. From its surface, dark tendrils stretched outward, curling toward the travelers. The cold intensified, biting into their skin, their bones, their very souls. The whispers rose in pitch, overlapping voices calling their names, mocking, taunting, dragging them toward the edge of sanity. Asterisk Emily grabbed Sarah and pulled her away from the car. We need to go now, asterisk, but the forest resisted. Paths that had seemed clear moments ago were gone. Trees blocked their way, roots twisted impossibly to form walls. The mirror pulsed, glowing faintly, sending waves of oppressive energy through. The clearing. It wasn't just a reflection, it was a portal, a gateway to another reality, one where their worst fears would become flesh. Asterisk Marcus, desperate, reached out and smashed the mirror with a branch. The glass didn't shatter. Instead, it rippled violently, like water in a storm. A scream, high-pitched, impossible, otherworldly, echoed from the mirror, filling the forest with pain and rage. Shadows exploded from the surface, coiling around. The trees, twisting toward the travelers. Asterisk Jason grabbed Emily's arm. We have to run. It's coming for us. Asterisk the travelers bolted through the thick fog, branches clawing at their faces, roots tripping them as the shadows from the mirror pursued. Behind them, the whispers escalated into a cacophony, blending with screams and the sound of branches snapping unnaturally. Asterisk the path twisted and warped. Every step forward felt like 10 backward. They saw glimpses of themselves reflected in puddles on the ground, distorted, monstrous, almost unrecognizable. The mirror's power followed them, creeping into every reflection, every surface, insinuating itself into reality. Asterisk Emily led them through the fog, her heart hammering, lungs burning. Don't look back, she shouted. But the mind is a traitor on Butude Road, and glimpses of the mirror of themselves, twisted and screaming, kept appearing in every shadow, every reflection. Asterisk the forest seemed endless. The fog thickened, further chilling them to the bone. Whispers followed, repeating their fears in voices they recognized. Friends, family, strangers they had passed on the street. The line between reality and reflection blurred. Asterisk Sarah screamed as a shadowy hand seemed to reach from a reflection in a puddle, clawing toward her ankle. She stumbled, but Marcus grabbed her, yanking her back to her feet. Keep moving. Don't. Let it touch you, he yelled. Asterisk hours or perhaps minutes, time had no meaning here past. The travelers stumbled blindly through the fog, exhausted, terrified, and disoriented. Behind them, the mirror pulsed faintly, its dark tendrils retreating into the forest, but the fear it had sown lingered, seeping into their minds, warping reality around them. Asterisk finally, they emerged from the clearing, the fog thinning just enough to see the familiar cracked asphalt of Butude Road stretching ahead. But they knew, deep down, that the mirror's influence hadn't ended. The shadows, the whispers, the reflections, they were carried with them now, lurking just beyond perception, waiting for their next moment of weakness. Asterisk Emily exhaled shakily. We made it, she whispered. But even as the words left her mouth, the knowledge gnawed at her. Butude Road had not let them go. It had merely shifted the game. Asterisk, as the travelers drove forward, the forest behind them seemed to pulse faintly, like a heartbeat, and the faint glimmer of the mirror shimmered. In the distance, hidden in the mist, waiting for the next wanderers to stumble into its trap. Asterisk, the encounter had changed them. Each one carried a seed of terror planted deep within, a reminder that some horrors are not defeated by running. They are carried with you, growing, waiting, patient, and hungry. Asterisk, and for those who travel Butude Road, the forest whispers a constant truth. Your reflection is never safe. Your fears are never alone, and the mirror always waits. Scene 5. The chasers stressed the forest had begun to change around them. Trees no longer seemed stationary. They bent subtly, leaning toward the travelers, their twisted branches stretching like clawed hands. The fog was thicker than ever, swirling, unnaturally, moving against the wind, pressing closer with every step. The mirror in the woods was far behind them, but its influence lingered. Shadows stretched unnaturally from the eddies of their vision, twisting and writhing as if they had lives of their own. Asterisk, Emily's hands trembled on the wheel. The asphalt beneath them was cracked and shifting, warping as if the road itself were alive. Keep moving. Don't stop, she shouted, voice strained, almost breaking under fear. Asterisk, behind them, the whispers returned, louder now, chanting in unintelligible tones. Some spoke their names. Others mimicked their own thoughts, repeating fears they had tried to suppress. They pressed on relentlessly, and with the whispers came movement shapes darting between the trees. Glimpses of impossible forms, faster than the eye could track. Asterisk, Jason's voice cracked. They're following us. Whatever those things are, they're faster than us. Asterisk, Marcus turned his head slightly, trying to catch a glimpse. A shadow flickered along the road, detached from any tree or bush, moving with terrifying speed. It was humanoid in shape, but wrong limbs elongated, joints bending impossibly, eyes glowing faintly with a cold, predatory light. Another shadow appeared, then another, until dozens seemed to stalk them simultaneously. Asterisk, Sarah screamed as one of the shapes darted across the road ahead, vanishing into the fog with unnatural speed. They're everywhere. Asterisk, Emily gritted her teeth. Keep your eyes on the road. Don't let them touch you. The chase had begun. As they sped through the forest, the asphalt warped beneath their tires, bending and twisting. Potholes appeared suddenly, roots rising like snakes to trip the car. The shadows mirrored every movement, some on the ground, others on the trees, stretching impossibly like a living nightmare. Each second felt elongated. Time itself was distorted on Butude Road. Asterisk, one shadow lunged toward the car from the fog, passing through the air with terrifying speed. The car swerved violently, tires skidding on loose gravel. Emily barely regained control. They're trying to make us crash, she yelled. Asterisk, the shadows multiplied, sliding across the road in unnatural formations. They reached through the fog, moving independently of gravity, wrapping around trees, roots, and even the air itself. The travelers could feel their presence pressing in, cold and hungry, probing for weaknesses, seizing upon panic. Asterisk Jason's breathing was ragged. We can't outrun them. Asterisk Marcus turned, panicked. Then what? What do we do? Asterisk but no one had answers. The shadows didn't chase for sport, they hunted. They seemed to feed on fear, and the more terrified the travelers became, the faster and more aggressive the entities moved. Asterisk, a shadow appeared in the headlights directly in front of the car. Its face, if it could be called that, twisted in a grotesque, impossible expression, mouth opening in a silent scream. Emily slammed on the brakes, but the car skidded, fishtailing dangerously. The shadow leaped onto the hood, and for a brief, paralyzing moment, it felt as if the car itself had become the creature's playground. Asterisk Sarah's scream cut through the chaos. The shadow was gone, vanished into the fog, but the terror it left lingered, clawing at her mind. It's everywhere. There's no way out. Asterisk Emily's voice shook. We have to keep going. If we stop, they'll take us. Asterisk the trees themselves seemed to conspire. Branches bent into arcas, forming grotesque barriers, closing off potential escape routes. Roots slithered along the ground, curling around tires like snakes. Every time they tried to turn or find a different path, the road shifted, looping, impossibly trapping them deeper in the forest. Asterisk Jason shouted over the roar of the engine. This isn't natural. It's not just shadows there, controlling the road. It's alive. Asterisk, the realization struck them all simultaneously. Butude Road was no longer a path. They were inside a living nightmare, and the nightmare was hunting them. Asterisk, as they drove, glimpses of previous victims appeared, shadows of travelers who had failed to escape flickered at the edges of their headlights. Some reached toward them, others shrieked silently, mouths moving in wordless screams. The forest around them seemed to pulse with anticipation, feeding on the fear that radiated from the car. Asterisk, a sudden screech tore through the air. One of the trees split violently, branches snapping like bones, and a figure emerged, tall, impossibly thin, moving with a predatory grace. It was the same figure from the first encounter, now accompanied by dozens of smaller shadows that writhed like liquid in the fog. The travelers realized that the first figure had been a scout, and now the full hunt had begun. Asterisk Emily's knuckles were white on the steering wheel. We have to survive. Somehow, she whispered to herself, voice trembling. Asterisk, the shadows surged forward. Some seemed to pass through the air itself, colliding with the car in ghostly bursts of force. The windshield fogged as if breathing upon them, leaving streaks of condensation shaped like screaming faces. The engine groaned under the strain, but Emily pressed on, tires slipping over the warped asphalt. Asterisk, the chase escalated further. Shadows lunged through trees, others slid across the road, some emerging from the fog in front of them only to vanish. Instantly, every glance revealed movement where none should have been. Fear became a tangible, crushing weight, pressing on their minds, bending reality around them. Asterisk Sarah screamed again as one shadow clawed at the side of the car. The vehicle rocked violently, branches scratching across the windows. Emily fought to keep control, heart hammering, sweat running down her face. Asterisk, Marcus shouted. There's too many of them. We'll never make it out. Asterisk Jason turned, eyes wide, staring into the fog. No, we can't stop, but we can't outrun them either. We have to figure something Asterisk, his words ended in a scream as a shadow passed directly through. His body, cold and solid in its impossibility, sending a shockwave of pain through him. Emily swerved violently, narrowly avoiding a collision with a warped tree trunk that had suddenly appeared in the middle of the road. Asterisk, the road itself became the enemy. Every bend was a trap, every shadow a predator. They drove faster, hearts pounding, minds fraying. The whispers became voices, each one calling their names, detailing their fears, mocking them. Asterisk, and then they realized there was no pattern, no escape route. The forest shifted around them, the road bending impossibly, the shadows always ahead, always behind, always watching. Butude Road wasn't just a path, it was a maze that lived, hunted, and learned. Asterisk, hours or perhaps minutes. Time was meaningless. Here passed in a blur of terror. Exhausted, terrified, and barely clinging to sanity, they spotted a faint light in the distance. A clearing, a chance. Asterisk, Emily shouted, "There. Maybe we can hide." Asterisk, the car skidded into the clearing. The shadows paused at the edge, hissing and twisting, reluctant to enter. But the moment they slowed, the road itself seemed to close in, roots rising like walls, fog thickening like a physical barrier. Asterisk, the travelers realized the brutal truth. The chase never truly ends. Butude Road always hunts, always tests, always waits for weakness. Asterisk, they pressed on, hearts pounding, breath ragged, knowing the shadows were never far behind. Each turn, each breath, each heartbeat could be their last. The line between predator and prey had disappeared, and survival depended on one thing alone: sheer, desperate endurance. Asterisk, and in the shadows, the figures waited, patient, knowing, hungering. For the moment they faltered. For the second they let fear control them entirely. Asterisk, the chase had begun, and it would never truly end. Scene 6. The truth of Butude Road, the chase had driven them to exhaustion. Hearts pounded, lungs burned, and every nerve screamed for relief, but there was none. The forest around them was alive, bending, twisting, alive with whispers and shadows that moved independently of light or matter. The travelers had lost count of hours, or maybe it had been days. Time had no meaning on Butude Road. Asterisk, Emily's hands were raw from gripping the wheel. Her mind raced, trying to comprehend what had happened. Why? Why is this happening? She whispered, voice barely audible over the engine and the rustle of the forest. What is this place? Asterisk, Marcus shivered, eyes darting to the trees, to the fog, to the shadows. It's not a road, not a forest. It's something else, something alive. And it's been feeding on people like us for a long time. Asterisk, Jason, exhausted but still alert, pointed ahead. In the thickening fog, they could see the remnants of another structure, ancient, partially collapsed, yet somehow imposing. Stone. Walls carved with strange symbols, blackened by age and weather, suggested a building older than memory itself. Asterisk, this. Maybe this is where it started, Jason said. Maybe this is the truth of Butude Road. Asterisk, the travelers approached. Cautiously. The fog swirled unnaturally around the building, and the air was thick, suffocating, filled with the scent of damp earth, decay, and something metallic, almost blood-like. The whispers grew louder as they drew near, chanting in a language none of them understood, yet somehow comprehensible in its intent. Fear, torment, control. Asterisk. The door to the structure was cracked and splintered. Emily pushed it open, and the inside revealed a hall filled with artifacts, remnants of an ancient ritual. Bones, strange carvings, and a massive altar at the center, covered in dust and faded stains. Surrounding the altar were faded murals, depicting scenes of people walking a long road, shadows looming over them, twisting their forms, consuming their essence. Asterisk. Sarah whispered, voice shaking. This is it. This is what controls the road. Asterisk. Marcus examined the carvings, running fingers over the symbols. They're not just decoration. They're spells, rituals. This place, someone or something cursed the road long ago. They trapped the souls here, feeding the road, giving it power. Asterisk. Emily's eyes widened in horror. Trapped souls, you mean? All the people we've seen, the shadows, the reflections. They were victims. Asterisk. Jason nodded grimly. Yes, this road. It doesn't just trap the living. It consumes them, twists them into something else. And it's been doing it for centuries, maybe longer. The figure we saw, the shadows there, part of the road now, and it's learning. It adapts to fear, feeding on it, using it to trap more. Asterisk. Sarah pressed a hand to her mouth, tears in her eyes. So, we're next. Asterisk. The whispers surged, almost deafening now, echoing off the walls. Emily felt them inside her head, clawing at her thoughts, feeding her fear, testing her. We have to stop it. There has to be a way, she said, though doubt gnawed at her. Asterisk. Marcus pulled a small, ancient book from the altar. Its pages were brittle, filled with strange runes and instructions for a ritual. Maybe this is it. Maybe this tells how the road was cursed, or how it can be broken, he said. Asterisk. Jason peered over his shoulder. Or maybe it's a trap. We can't trust it. This road, it's alive. It wants us afraid. That's its power. Asterisk. Emily looked around, seeing faint shadows moving along the walls, twisting into grotesque shapes. Faces of past travelers appeared briefly in the murals, their expressions frozen in terror. She swallowed hard. We can't just leave. If we run now, it will follow us forever. We need answers. Asterisk. The book detailed the origins of Butude Road. Long ago, a powerful sorcerer banished by his people cursed the forest and the road. Using dark rituals, he bound the souls of the lost to the road, creating an endless labyrinth that thrived on fear. Shadows were former victims, twisted into eternal servants, sent to ensnare anyone who dared enter. The mirror, the village, the eye. Chasing figures, all were part of the curse, testing, feeding, and trapping. Asterisk. Emily turned to her friends. We have to remember this. The road wants fear. It wants chaos. If we stay calm, if we don't let it control us, maybe we can survive. Asterisk. Marcus shook his head. Survive, maybe, but escaping it completely, I don't know if anyone ever has. Asterisk. Jason's face hardened. Then we use what we know. We anticipate it, we resist it, and we move with purpose. Fear gives it power. Logic, memory, courage. Maybe that's the key, Asterix said as shivered. And if it doesn't work? Emily met her gaze. Then we fight. We have to. There is no other choice. As they prepared to leave the structure, the whispers rose to a crescendo, forming words. They could understand. You cannot leave. You cannot escape. You belong here. Emily gritted her teeth, voice defiant. We will leave, and we will survive. We're not yours. We're not yours. The shadows outside began to gather, forming shapes that mirrored the travelers, each one more grotesque than the last. The road itself seemed to pulse, bending, twisting, ready to trap them once more. But armed with knowledge, the travelers felt a spark of hope. They understood the rules now, even if barely. The forest loomed ahead, dark and suffocating. But the travelers walked with purpose. Every whisper, every shadow, every flicker of movement was a test. And as the truth of Butude Road settled in their minds, they realized, understanding it didn't guarantee safety, but it gave them a weapon, the knowledge of its hunger, its methods, and its weakness, fear. With each step, the road responded, twisting to challenge them. Yet the travelers pressed forward, hearts pounding, minds sharp, refusing to give in. And somewhere deep within the fog, unseen and patient, the shadows waited, aware that the final confrontation was near, but unable to claim victory yet. The truth of Butude Road had been revealed. The curse, the shadows, the mirror, the village day, were all part of a design, ancient and malevolent. But knowledge was power, and the travelers had just gained the first edge in a battle for survival, one that would decide whether they would leave as themselves or become part of the road forever. Scene 7. The final escape or doom. The forest loomed ahead, thick with fog and suffocating shadows. Every sound was amplified, the crunch of tires over warped asphalt, the snap of unseen branches, the whispers that slithered around their minds like snakes. Emily gripped the steering wheel, knuckles white, heart pounding so violently it felt as though it would explode. The knowledge of Butude Road's curse weighed heavily on them. But now it was not just knowledge. They had to act, or they would become permanent residents of this nightmare. Marcus leaned forward, scanning the fog. We know its tricks now. We can't give in to fear. We have to stay calm, predictable, human. Jason's voice was taut with tension. Easy to say. But every shadow, every whisper is trying to break us. Sarah clutched Emily's arm. I don't know if I can. It's everywhere. It's in my head, my chest. I can feel it crawling inside me. Emily shook her head, voice firm despite the trembling. We can. Focus on what's real. The car, the road, each other. Fear gives it strength. Don't give. At that, the fog thickened to a near-solid wall. The beams of their headlights swallowed instantly. Shadows twisted and writhed at the periphery, coalescing into shapes too fast to track. Then came the first attack. A towering figure, impossibly thin, emerged from the mist, its limbs bent at unnatural angles, its faceless head tilted toward them, a mockery of curiosity. Emily slammed on the accelerator. The car fishtailed over the warped asphalt, narrowly avoiding roots that shot up like serpents. The shadow followed, gliding over the road, impossibly fast, unfazed by speed or obstacles. Asterisk, hold on. Emily shouted, "We're not stopping." Asterisk, the car plunged into a narrow curve. Trees leaned in, branches clawing at windows. Whispers now screamed in unison, voices overlapping, each one echoing a fear, a memory, a secret. Shadows multiplied, surrounding them from all sides. Asterisk, Jason shouted, voice cracking, "We need a plan. We can't outrun all of them." Asterisk, Samali's mind raced. She remembered the ancient building, the book with the rituals, the knowledge of the road's hunger. Fear empowered it. Calmness, clarity, focus. Maybe that was their only weapon. Asterisk, close your eyes if you have to, Emily shouted. Don't look at them directly. Don't feed them with fear. Asterisk, Marcus muttered, barely audible. How can we not be afraid when they're all around us? Asterisk, the forest seemed to bend and twist in response to their emotions. When Sarah closed her eyes, the shadows hesitated, uncertain. When Jason's hands unclenched, they slowed slightly. Emily realized the road reacted to their fear. Asterisk, using this, they began a strategy. Every time a shadow lunged, they diverted. Their gaze focused on the road itself, mentally repeating memories of calm, of their lives outside this nightmare. The shadows paused, recoiled slightly, unsure of how to respond. Asterisk, but the road wasn't done. It threw every trick it had left. The asphalt buckled, splitting into jagged veins. Trees bent unnaturally, blocking the path. Fog swirled into faces, visions of people they loved, screaming, pleading, accusing. Their minds were tested to the limit. Asterisk, Emily's hands shook violently, but she forced herself to breathe deeply, focusing on the wheel, on the path. We can do this, she whispered. We will leave. Asterisk, the shadows closed in. The first figure lunged again. Emily swerved at the last moment, narrowly avoiding it. The car fishtailed into a claringa, small, open patch of earth surrounded by dense forest. Here, the whispers were deafening, the fog a suffocating wall. Asterisk, then, the largest shadow appeared, a monstrous, elongated silhouette, taller than any tree, faceless yet somehow aware, pulsing with malevolence. It wasn't just a shadow. It was the embodiment of Butude Road's cursed. Asterisk, Marcus gasped. That's it. That's the road. Asterisk, Emily knew it had come to end this. Either they survived, or they became part of its collection, twisted and trapped for eternity. Asterisk, Jason spoke, voice quivering but resolute. Remember what we learned. It feeds on fear. Stay calm. Don't panic. We can fight it with ourselves. Asterisk, the figure advanced, its form stretching, twisting reality around it. Branches became hands, roots became tentacles, fog became a suffocating wall. The travelers held their breath, gripping the wheel, repeating their calm, refusing to give in. Asterisk, for a moment, the world hung in balance. The shadows hesitated, recoiling as if struck by something invisible. Their momentum slowed. Then, slowly, the car surged forward. Asterisk, the road straightened, briefly a narrow path, illuminated faintly as if granting them passage. They drove with precision, focusing on movement, not on the horrors around them. Every shadow that lunged, Every whisper that screamed, they met with calm, unshaken by panic. Asterisk, but Butude Road was cunning. The fog thickened ahead, forming the outlines of the abandoned village they had seen earlier. The structures loomed like monuments of terror, faceless echoes of all who had failed before. Shadows rose from every broken doorway, every collapsed roof. Asterisk Emily pressed the accelerator. Through it, focus. Asterisk the car plowed forward. Shadows clawed, slammed against the vehicle, shapes stretching impossibly, but none could stop them. With every heartbeat, every step forward, the travelers held their resolve. The road shrieked, a soundless wail vibrating through their minds, testing their willpower. Asterisk the edge of the fog loomed. Beyond it, light. Real light. Daylight. They couldn't be sure, but instinct told them this was their escape. Asterisk the shadows surged one last time, massive and overwhelming. Emily's vision blurred. Her heart felt like it would explode. She gritted her teeth, focusing on the road, the wheel, the light ahead. "We are not afraid," she screamed, voice echoing through the fog. Asterisk the shadows recoiled, dissipating like mist under sunlight. The road straightened fully. Trees leaned back, the fog lifting, revealing the familiar asphalt beyond. The figures, the twisted echoes. The shadows, the monstrous manifestation vanished into the woods, retreating to the depths of Butude Road. Asterisk silence. Absolute, terrifying silence. Asterisk they drove for what felt like hours. The forest gradually thinning, sunlight breaking through in pale beams. Every step was still tense, eyes darting, but the oppressive presence was gone at least for now. Asterisk Emily finally exhaled, shaking violently. We made it. We survived. Asterisk Sarah leaned back, tears streaming. I thought we'd die there. Forever. Asterisk Jason nodded slowly. We survived, yes. But the road. It's still there, waiting. Asterisk Marcus looked back at the receding fog. It's patient. And it will feed on the next ones who wander too close. We were lucky, or maybe it let us go because we didn't give it what it wanted. Fear, we kept our heads. Asterisk the travelers drove on, emerging from the cursed forest onto a normal road. The asphalt was solid, the trees ordinary, the shadows gone. But deep within each of them lingered the memory of Butude Road, the whispers, the mirror, the village, the shadows, the figure. It was a memory that would never fade, a terror permanently etched into their minds. Asterisk they had escaped, but the road had changed them. Every glance in a mirror now reminded them of the twisted reflections. Every shadow in the corner of the eye could have been watching. Fear had been their adversary and their teacher. Asterisk and somewhere, far behind them, hidden in the folds of fog and shadow, Butude Road waited. Patient, hungry, eternal. Asterisk because the curse never dies. It only sleeps waiting for the next travelers to stumble into its grasp. The next screams to echo through the forest. The next souls to become part of its collection. Asterisk the final lesson was clear. Survival is not victory. It is merely the temporary reprieve from a terror that endures forever. Asterisk, but for now, they were free.